Madam Chair, it's yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the August 13th, 2020 telephonic teleconference meeting of the Memphis and Shelby County Land Use Control Board. My name is Mary Sharp, and I will be serving as your chairperson today. We will begin this morning's meeting with a roll call. Mr. Whitehead, would you proceed, please?
Mr. Fleming.
Here.
Mr. Gill.
Here.
Vice Chair Lyles Wallace. She just told me she's muted. Let me unmute her. 230. Vice Chair Lyles Wallace.
Here.
Mr. McKinnon. I think some of our late joiners are still muted. Let me do this.
Here.
Here we go, Mr. McKinnon. Ms. O'Connell.
Here.
Dr. Pritchard.
Here.
Mr. Thomas.
Here.
Mr. Tolles.
Here.
And Ms. Wilbanks.
Here.
And Madam Chair.
Here.
We have a full complement.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Whitehead. Everyone should already have a copy of today's agenda for this August the 13th telephonic meeting. Anyone who wishes to be a speaker on today's agenda has already filled out the attendance speaker's card, and it is in the hands of Mr. Whitehead or his staff. When it comes time for you to speak, he or his staff will call your name. We'll unmute you at the appropriate time for you to speak. Please wait about 10 seconds before speaking so you can be promptly and properly unmuted so that we can hear all of your remarks. At this point, I would like to read our conflict of interest statement. The adopted policy of the Land Use Control Board requires that any member of the board recuse himself or herself from any participation in the discussion or voting on any matter on the meeting's agenda in which he or she may have direct or indirect personal interest. The members shall in this teleconference let us know verbally they are recusing themselves during deliberation on any matter from which they have recused themselves. An abstention may substitute for a recusal for the purposes of maintaining a quorum. I would now like to get the approval of the minutes of the meeting from our July the 9th, 2020 meeting. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair, Pritchard, I move that we approve the meeting minutes from the previous meeting.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second, by Wilbanks.
Thank you, Ms. Wilbanks. Is there any discussion from anyone? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion carries. Mr. Whitehead, I believe you have a secretary's report today for this month, and please give us an explanation of today's procedure after you give us the secretary's report.
Yes, ma'am. As I think we've previously discussed at our meetings, the customary moratorium on land use cases that occurs on both sides of Main Street at the City Council and at the County Commission during budget season was extended this year, obviously, due to the pandemic. With that said, in the last few weeks, both legislative bodies have restarted their hearings on land use matters, so I did want to take an opportunity to update the body on some of those votes. If you recall Quinn Ridge, out there on Quinn Road in southeast Shelby County, it went back to y'all after being vetoed by Mayor Luttrell. It went to the County Commission. It was rejected by the County Commission. The minutes of that rejection were reconsidered. A few months passed, and that development was, again, approved by the County Commission by a 7-6 vote. The Watkins car lot, Watkins and Thrift in Fraser, this body recommended rejection. The City Council heeded that recommendation and also recommended rejection. In like order, the cell tower in the Glenview Historic Overlay was rejected by the City Council as well. On the positive front, on the approval front, we had a few rezonings that were recently approved by the Council. The Ketchum Road rezoning, that's north of Airways Middle, that was approved by Council, as were a couple rezonings in and around Malone Road near Shelby and Holmes. Finally, the hotel at Union, or I should say the rebuilt hotel at Union and Camilla, was approved. In addition to those 6 cases, there are a few appeals. These are correspondence cases, obviously, because they didn't advance up to the City Council or County Commission as a matter of course. The first of those appeals was the Linfield and Quince office building. The Council has had a preliminary hearing on that. They have sent it back so the appellant, the neighbors, and the appellee, the applicant, can work out a compromise set of conditions, and we will see. The second appeal was the Germantown Parkway indoor self-storage facility. That appeal was approved in part. The development was approved, but with an expanded 100-foot buffer as opposed to the 75-foot buffer that was approved by this body. And finally, last month, this body recommended approval of a 2-year time extension for a gravel mining operation, and that was appealed up to County Commission. The County Commission, since they are having in-person meetings, we are only having one land use case at a time, so that appeal likely won't be heard by the County Commission until we speak again. So I won't be able to give you an update on that. With that, Madam Chair, here are some procedures for this meeting. At the beginning of our meeting...
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
This is Darrell Thomas. And maybe this case hadn't gone to City Council yet. The one over at Graves Elementary, has that gone before City Council yet? We did that one last month, I believe, or the month before last.
Right. Well, I think it went to 2 of y'all's meetings. It will be heard by Council Tuesday, this coming Tuesday.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Madam Chair, going to our procedure, at the beginning of the meeting, we'll establish a consent calendar for those items where no one on the board or in the public or on the side of the applicants request a public hearing or want to contest any of the conditions. After that consent calendar is established and approved, we'll move on to the regular agenda. For each case on the regular agenda, staff will give a presentation followed by a presentation by the applicant. After the applicant speaks, we'll go to the supporters of the petition. Finally, we'll go to those in opposition. Both the applicant/supporters and opposition each have 10 minutes. The chair has the discretion to increase that amount of time, provided she provides an equal amount of additional time per side. After those 2 sets of 10 minutes are complete, the applicant will have a 3-minute rebuttal period. Following all of the presentations, and after all parties have been heard, the chair will ask if any board members have any final questions from any people who spoke. Following that, the chair will close the public hearing portion of that case and entertain a motion, and then the body will discuss the matter. If after that occurs, the body wants to reopen the public hearing, we'll have a 2/3 vote to reopen the public hearing, and at that point, both sides, the applicant and opposition, will be given an equal amount of opportunity to speak. And Madam Vice Chair will be keeping our time this morning. Again, if any member, well, I'll skip that. We have all of our speakers who are here to be heard this morning, and I think that does it for the procedure. And Madam Chair, while I have the floor, and before Ms. Wilbanks takes the helm for the consent agenda, I did want to give her a update on the consent agenda. It looks like the following items will be not heard and approved in toto on the consent agenda. Those are agenda items 2, which would be a 1-month hold, 30-day delay, to allow the applicant to post a sign of the September hearing. So number 2 would be on consent as a hold. Number 4, Madam Wilbanks, if you want to call on me, we have an amended condition on number 4. Followed by that, we have number 6. 6 is consent as an approval, as are numbers 9 and 10, both consent as approval. With that, Madam Chair, I think I've exhausted my time, and I'll hand the floor back over to you.
Okay, thank you. Again, if any member of the audience wishes to provide testimony in support or in opposition to a case, he or she should have already filled out the speaker's card and provided it to Mr. Whitehead. The Land Use Control Board, I have one more speech here. The Land Use Control Board is a supporter of community involvement, and we welcome neighborhood comments and feedback. We are respectful of the fact that many of you have taken off work, adjusted work schedules, or adjusted your schedules, even if you are still at home, to be heard today via telephone. But we ask that your comments be made within the 2 10-minute time frames allowed for the applicant and the opposition, etc., 3-minute rebuttal time. If there are multiple speakers, please try not to be repetitive with your side limited time. Lastly, I'd like to ask you all to silence your cell phones as to not interrupt or disturb anyone during today's proceedings, as these can still be heard if you are unmuted via this teleconference. I'm now ready to move to the consent agenda. With our procedures now explained, I would like to introduce Ms. Wilbanks, who will be this morning's consent agenda chairperson. Ms. Wilbanks will read those items which will be on the consent agenda, and in this case, she will just make a motion as Mr. Whitehead has already read those that are on the consent agenda. So with that being said, I turn it over to Ms. Wilbanks.
Thank you. Item number 2, case Z-1546 in the Universities District. The request is a modification to the site plan approved with the Luther Towers apartment shop plan at the southeast corner of Highland and Cowden to allow additional parking. Staff recommendation is hold for 1 month. Item number 4, case PD 03-346 in southeast Memphis. The request is a major modification to a planned development to allow motor vehicle service in the Winchester Hacks Cross PD Area C. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions, and Mr. Whitehead will read an additional amendment.
Thank you, Ms. Wilbanks. Actually, I just got a note that we have 2 additional amendments. The first is under Roman numeral 1, instead of saying use permitted, office uses, we need to strike office uses so it can read those uses allowed in the CMU2 district. So that is amendment number 1, and amendment number 2 deals with signs, and the new condition shall read, this is Roman numeral 5, all signs shall be in accordance with the CMU2 district, but no illuminated attached signs shall be located on the south elevation of the buildings, period. And thank you.
All right. Item number 6, case PD 20-06 in Eads. The request is a planned development to allow vehicle storage on the south side of US 64 east of Washington. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. Item number 9, case SUP 20-08 on Beltline. The request is a special use permit for a convenience store with gas sales on Southern between Beltline and Boston. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions. And item number 10, case Z20-08, also on Beltline. The request is the rezoning of 0.2 acre property at 580/584 Beltline Street from RU1 to CMU1, which is a companion case to item number 9, and the staff recommendation is approval. And that is our consent agenda.
Okay, and you have moved for those to be approved, is that correct? Pardon?
No, you'll ask for the motion, and then I'll move to approve.
I'm asking for the motion now.
Okay, so anybody have any comments or questions? All right, well then move to approve. Item number 2, case Z1546. Item number 4, case PD03-346 with the 2 amendments. Item number 6, case PD20-06. Item number 9, case SUP20-08. And item number 10, case Z20-08.
Second.
Second.
Okay, who gave the second?
Pritchard?
Darrell Thomas.
Okay. It has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote, and we will do individual votes.
Mr. Fleming?
Aye.
Mr. Gill?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lyles Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Aye.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Dr. Pritchard?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Tolles?
Aye.
Ms. Wilbanks?
Yes.
And Madam Chair?
Aye.
10 ayes.
Okay. Motion carried. So that being said, we're now getting ready for our regular agenda where we will hear items 1, 3, 5, 7, and 8. And now I'd like to turn the regular meeting over to Dr. Pritchard.
Agenda item number 1, SE20-02, Poplar Plaza, special exception to allow additional building height at the northwest corner of Poplar and Highland. Staff recommends approval with conditions.
Thank you. There is opposition, so we will hear this case. The staff will present this case.
Good morning, board members. This is Seth Thomas with the Office of Planning and Development. So the application before us is SE2002. The applicant is Finard Poplar Realty Limited. The location is 3485 Plaza Drive and 3486 Poplar Avenue. And the request is a special exemption to paragraph section 3.26A to allow for an increase of the maximum building height within a CMU1 district.
You can turn this on with
I guess the next slide.
Hey, Seth?
Yep.
I forgot to announce this just for everyone or anyone who has not joined us for one of these telephonic meetings. The slides that Mr. Thomas and subsequent staff members will be referencing are being streamed on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/C as in channel, /Division of Planning and Development. Sorry, Mr. Thomas, back to you.
You're fine. This is just a land use map showing the land uses around the adjacent property. It's mostly a mix of commercial, single-family residential, and then a spattering of multi-family residential. Next slide. Then here's some site photos, just the view of the subject property from the corner of South Highland and Poplar, as well as the view of the northeastern building of this property, as it is the height exemption is looking at 2 specific buildings that are on the southeasternmost corner of the Poplar Plaza. Next slide. And then this is the view from behind the buildings from Plaza Avenue, which is sort of the road that goes behind the buildings in question. And then this is the recently approved subdivision preliminary plan, which divided Poplar Plaza in between the 2 buildings that are westernmost, and then the 2 buildings under question in the southeast corner were placed within their own lots for the purpose of applying for this special exemption. And then here's the site plan for the special exemption. And then here's the conceptual rendering of what's being requested by the applicant. The building envelope is going to relatively remain the same, with it being set back from the street to allow for the sight lines to stay the same or actually improve from what they were to the currently existing building, which we should see on the next slide. So here you can see from the easternmost building, the sight lines that are currently there to the ones that are being proposed with the proposed building setback. And then the next slide will show that same thing for the building that fronts onto Poplar. And then we'll get into the Memphis 3.0. So in the future land use planning map, this land description is an anchor neighborhood, Main Street, where the purpose of this is to provide retail and services to the surrounding neighborhood. According to this description, the request meets this criteria because increased density and apartments with an active ground floor commercial use are encouraged within anchor neighborhoods. And then for the existing adjacent land use zoning, surrounded by residential, commercial, and open space. So the requested land use is compatible with these adjacent land uses and zoning districts because the existing land uses surrounding the parcel are similar in nature. And if we see in the degree of change map here that the application site is under the sustain anchor. And then on the next slide, we see that in this degree of change, actions for sustained anchors are to support existing market conditions, facilitate private investment, and also, and more importantly, in the ways to sustain, towards the bottom, it's allowing for an increased density and building height to allow for a more diversified building portfolio within sustained neighborhoods. So based on the information provided, the proposal is consistent with the Memphis 3.0 comprehensive plan. So in conclusion, the applicant is requesting a special exemption to allow for additional height. The special exemption is asking for a change in the maximum allowed height from the 48 feet, which is what's usually allowed in the CMU1 district, to 78 feet. The Land Use Control Board is authorized to grant these exemptions, and the staff finds that the request meets the special exemption approval criteria. So finally, staff is recommending approval with the following conditions: that the max height of the development is limited to the 78 feet as requested within this application. And that concludes the
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Thomas. Any of the board members have any questions for Mr. Thomas before we talk to the applicant and the opposition? If you don't have any questions, is the applicant present, and would you give us your name and address and your presentation?
Good morning. This is Harvey Markham with the Reeves Firm, 6800 Poplar Avenue, Suite 101.
Okay, we're ready for your presentation.
Good morning. Someone want to speak there?
Well, this is Rick.
Rick, just a minute. We'll come back to that. Hold on, Rick.
I just didn't know if I needed to introduce myself. I'm sorry.
Joining me this morning is Rick Smith with Fennard Properties and Mark Weaver with HBG, the architect on the project, and they're available to chime in at appropriate time to indicate their thoughts about the project. We are certainly in agreement with the staff's recommendation of approval. A little bit of history. The Lowensteins and Bronson's building go back pretty good ways. Poplar Plaza began its construction right after World War II and was built, the Lowensteins building was built in 1952. The Bronson Building, which is the one to the north, the single-story building, was built in 1960. The phase one of this development will be built generally over the footprint of the Lowenstein's building, which will be completely demolished. And that building currently has a basement, a ground floor, a mezzanine, and an upper floor. So the demolition of that building will be an extensive project in itself, and will add considerable cost to the development, which is something that we can speak to a little bit later. The Bronson Building is a single-story building. It will be also demolished and will become the site of a new phase two of the development. Now, switching back to phase one will have some underground structured parking, a level of retail facing both Poplar Avenue and Highland Avenue, and then above that will be varying heights of wood construction type product that we're seeing a lot of now, built on a podium over the parking structure. The Bronson Building, phase two, will be have retail on the lower level, a level above that, I guess, meeting areas, or we'll let HPT speak to that in a minute. And then above that, on top of the podium, will be, again, apartment units making up the balance of the height of the building. The current subdivision that the Lowenstein's building is located in has a 50-foot setback, and we've honored that setback with this plan that's been drawn. The Bronson Building is within a lot that was recently brought about through a new subdivision that came about recently, and its setback would comply with the CMU1 district, which is 20 feet. Although the plan drawn, the face of the buildings in phase one and phase two will both be approximately 50 feet from Highland and a larger dimension from Poplar. I think the consideration here is mostly the Highland elevation. So we feel that the request for the height is something that will help to make this a viable project, will make the economics work. We think it'll be good for the neighborhood. We think it'll be good for the whole area out there to revitalize the Poplar Plaza, which has been a landmark property since after World War II, and Bernard has done a tremendous job in keeping that ball in the air for all these years, but it's time to go to a new development. And with that, I would maybe like to turn the mic over to Rick Smith with Fennard Properties. Rick, if you'll give me your name and address, and then your comments would be appreciated.
Sure. Thank you, Harvey. Rick Smith with Fennard Properties, address 3460 Plaza Avenue, Memphis, Tennessee. That is within, my office is within the Poplar Plaza Shopping Center. And I just want to thank the board for the opportunity to come before you and make this request. We have, as Harvey said, owned this property for a while. In fact, it's 35 years. The Fennard family has had it, and we consider it a very privilege to own it because of its landmark value within the city of Memphis. We have always tried to watch and invest at the right time to keep it from dipping or falling to a place that it shouldn't. We have been through some moments where it's kind of lost its steam, and we feel like we've been able to do that. And we think another is at hand, and that's why we're before you today. So again, I just thank the board for the opportunity to present this, and am glad to answer any questions from here forward.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in support that would like to speak at this time? If so, give us your name and address if you're on the line.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Nathaniel Smith. I live at 3139 Cowden Avenue in Memphis, just a couple blocks away from Poplar Plaza. I'm here today to support this exception. I've read several articles and looked at the drawings, and I think it seems like a really good use of space, regardless of the height of the building. I think it's important for the committee to know that homeowners in the neighborhood don't necessarily have issues with this new development. I think that a mixed-use space near my home would be a real benefit to my community. And I especially think it's important to note that a large portion, like the main building, is currently unoccupied. So I think something is better than nothing. Thank you. That's all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith. Any board members have any questions right now for either the applicant and or supporters before we turn it over to the opposition? Any questions? Hearing none, we're ready for the opposition to speak, and we have 3 in opposition. If you would...
Salamito Baser, you're on.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Brenda Salamito Baser, Salamito Land Planning, 1779 Kirby Parkway, Memphis. I am here on behalf of the Red Acres Neighborhood Association, which is located directly east of the development. For everyone, the Red Acres Neighborhood Association is not opposed to the redevelopment of the site. They are not opposed to the land uses of the apartments and the redeveloped retail. They are encouraged by the investment and also the initiative to redevelop, and know without the mixed use, this site may not be redeveloped. However, there are 2 points of concern related to the redevelopment of the property. The first one is that we don't have any elevations of the eastern side of this building, and it is directly across the street from several single-family homes that back up to the Highland property. We are in favor of the 78 feet on Poplar Avenue or even higher. However, for reasons that I will also state, they would like to have it remain 48 feet on Highland. The, again, lack of information of any elevations on Highland, we're questioning. We have a section through there, so we know that there's terracing around the majority of the building where the apartments are set back with green space up front. We're not seeing that in what we call the Bronson building, the northernmost building. We see that in opposite, where the green space is on the western side. And obviously we would like to see the 48 feet if it's to remain this way, or terraced so that the green space is on the east side. Then there is something that is somewhat related to the intensity, but it's the traffic associated with not just this property, but Red Acres neighborhood already has extensive traffic issues, cut through traffic through the neighborhood and the speeds through which people are cutting through. There are approximately 8 or 9 access points to Red Acres. And with the ability for cut-through as it exists today, the increased traffic, not just by this development, but as you may know, there's a proposed University of Memphis development just down the street that's going to add another 500 and something student housing beds. And what we would like to see is the turning movements associated with this. We know that the volume of traffic is not necessarily a significant increase as a result of the development. However, the turning movements we would really like to see. We asked for a hold from the developer back in July, and they said no, they would not give us a hold for a month to pursue some of this information. So that's why we are here today asking you to allow us to have a hold so that we can look at those elevations and to determine whether some of these traffic movements will have a negative impact on the single-family development. And I wanted to, I know there are other people that want to speak, but I wanted to point out another thing. In the Memphis 3.0, you will see at the bottom of page 18 of your staff report that form, location, and characteristics. We agree with the land uses. We agree with the redevelopment of the site. However, we believe it's not quite consistent with regard to form and location in the Memphis 3.0. Memphis 3.0 calls for house size scale of any type of development in this district of the anchor neighborhood Main Street. And it also calls for a height of 1 to 5 stories. And we believe that this is being proposed at 6 stories along Highland. So again, not opposed to the use or the investment or it's a dynamic looking building. Just would like to see the single family neighborhood be taken into consideration with this and the negative impacts that the 78 feet may have on those single family residences. So I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bazar. Is Ms. Cash available?
Well, Ms. Baser, hold your thoughts for a second. I have a question for Ms. Lyles Wallace. How many minutes do we have left on this side for the opposition?
5 minutes remain.
Thank you. Ms. Baser, the other 2 people that were scheduled to call did not call, so you can use that 5-minute balance.
Okay, thank you. So we have spoken with Harvey Markham and we've spoken with Rick, and we've tried to convey they've been very gracious and saying, that they would look at these items. Unfortunately, this decision is here today, and the Land Use Control Board is the final deciding body, and only on appeal will it go to City Council. So that was the reason for the hold. We're not necessarily interested in throwing a monkey wrench into their project or their timeline. Like I said, we think it is a beautiful redevelopment, and we would really, really like some consideration with regard to only that northern building and how it addresses Highland. The sections don't give us a full impact of how that addresses the Red Acres Neighborhood Association. So I am happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Bazar. Any board members have any questions of Ms. Bazar at this time?
I do. This is Jennifer O'Connell.
Okay, go ahead.
And I don't know if she has the answers, but if I'm looking at the rendering on page 8 of our staff report, the neighborhood, the single-family neighborhood, where does that lie in relation to this building? Because I can't tell.
So if you will look at sort of where the separation is between buildings, so we have the original Lowenstein building that's on the hard corner, and then you would have the Bronson building, which would be the linear building that is parallel to Highland. So their single family is almost directly across. An aerial photograph that is what I'm seeing on the screen right now is there's 180 residents within Red Acres neighborhood. The ones that are most directly affected are their backyards back up to Highland. And you can see there's like a little cul-de-sac there that's part of that development. And then, on the hard corner, the northeast corner is open space. But up above that, just to the north, there are a handful of single-family residences there.
Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Bazar? Mr. Whitehead, for a procedural question, I know we go back to the applicant for rebuttal. However, the opposition has asked for a hold, so do we vote on whether or not to hold it after the rebuttal, or do we vote at all on that, or what do we do?
My suggestion would be allow the applicant his rebuttal period if he chooses to use it with regard to the request for the hold, and then a motion could be made after that, a motion to approve, a motion to hold. Well, I guess those would be the two choices.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
This is J.C. McKinnon. I wanted to ask Ms. Bazar something. Is it okay? Is that okay?
Okay, go ahead.
Ms. Bazar, are you guys looking for some type of more privacy, or is that what the Red Acres community is seeking?
Yes, sir. The distance between the proposed building and sort of the backyards of several of those neighbors, it would help if the design, and I'm not really wanting to I'm not being critical because I think it's a good-looking building. However, as it impacts some of these single families, if it were terraced and almost flipped, so that the green space would be out front onto the Highland side, and then the apartments were towards the back. If that one linear building were just kind of flipped, I think that would be, we're not asking for the developer to lose any units. We're not asking for them to significantly change their performance. What we're just asking is a little more distance away from the backyards of those single-family residences.
Got it. Okay. I just wanted to clear that up and just kind of have an understanding of that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, if there aren't any more questions, we're ready for the applicant's rebuttal. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. This is Harvey Markham again, and I won't take long here because Rick and Mark Weaver may want to speak, but regarding the question that came up earlier about the relationship of the Bronson building to the planned development across the street, which is called the Galloway Place PD, which was brought into being in about 1995. There are seven homes in that development. Lot number 7 would be wholly across the street from this building. Lot number 6, a very small portion of that, maybe 15 or 20 feet of the north-south dimension of that lot, might be directly across from, we'll call it the Phase 2 building. So in reality, those are the 2 homes that are directly opposite the new construction. With regard to the cut-through traffic, this plan currently does not envision any curb cuts that aren't out there now serving the Poplar Plaza. And if you'll notice, the curb cuts don't align with Galloway Drive. So it would be sort of a funny movement to cut through from Galloway and then go either north or south and on Highland traffic to make a turn back into the development. I don't see that as a movement that would bring about extra traffic through Red Acres. It would be a circuitous route, which to me doesn't appear to be viable from a day-to-day. But anyway, that's my comment. Rick, you might want to add any comments here.
Yes, thank you, Harvey. And I want to really make sure that I thank Brenda for her approach and her openness to carefully say it's not opposition to the project as a whole. I am appreciative of that approach, and I want to say that. I just want to make a couple of comments in addition to what Harvey said in terms of what's being asked. The gentleman that had the question about privacy. I'm really focusing on that. One thought that we would have if we put the terrace on the Highland side, while I acknowledge it would be lower, the volume of people that would be out there, particularly in the evenings and on the weekends, would be more prone to have more eyes looking into a backyard or to those couple of houses than it would be to have a few apartments across the top that someone might occasionally glance out a window. And that makes it a little bit, I guess, opposite, if you will, if privacy is what you're looking for. The other thing that is very important to us as the developer, while we are working right here on this corner, we have in mind master planning for the shopping center as a whole, and the design that HBG has offered gives sight lines of architectural features every direction, and even including over to Highland, where the green area there is facing Highland on the front corner, because we have to keep in mind that the back of the shopping center, which also we have to lean forward and benefit from this after we get it done, needs to be appealing to the eye as well. And that's where, if we did flip the building, I feel pretty confident the cost is going to change, because now we have to rework the back to make sure we have all four sides being appealing to a sight line and traffic. And I will yield with those
Chair,
two comments.
the applicant has 15 seconds.
I yield.
Okay. Then we need to ask, are there any questions of the applicants regarding the rebuttal prior to closing the public portion of the case?
This is Brown Gill.
Go ahead.
I do
Go
have
ahead,
a question
Brown.
for the applicant. Sure, thank you. Are there any renderings or elevations of the eastern side of the project? And then
Who's asking the question?
this is Brown Gill.
Okay.
And are you, I guess, what is y'all's opposition to taking another 30 days, knowing that Red Acres as a neighborhood is probably going to be for this development? I think most of Land Use Control Board members would be, we like seeing this density. And so I guess two questions. Are there any elevations that we could see? And what is the problem with taking 30 days?
This is Rick. I was pausing to make sure that no one else was going to answer that. Brown, thanks for the question. I tell you, the first thing that comes to mind is what Harvey touched on. We agree with everything you've said about Red Acres, and I know because I'm a Memphian of the heritage and over 100 years old and the important names that have lived there. And it's important to be a good neighbor to them, and we have tried. But as a whole, if we have basically pleased 91 out of 93 homes, we jumped a high hurdle there. And we did, when they asked about traffic, we rushed and provided, I believe it was just in 3 working days, a traffic study for them, trying to work out that communication. But what we see with this particular request, we're already deeper than the setback. We are willing to listen, but I shared one of our first problems with that privacy thing. And we think it's going to affect the numbers in a negative way. So those would be my reasons. I didn't see enough runway to pause it, that would say, hey, there's an easy, cost-effective solution, and we're really down to the nitty-gritty of trying to please 100%. And I would love to do that, and Brenda has been terrific to speak with about it. But I just did not see 30 days changing that from the developer's side.
All right. What about any elevations for the eastern side?
This is Harvey Markham. Josh, I have a rendering that was done by HBG that I just took a picture of, and I can send it to you. Would that be something you could post there for view?
Maybe. It takes a village to do this meeting. I am not the one streaming on YouTube, so I could try to... Okay, yes, we can do it. I've received an affirmative by all the middle people involved.
Okay, that's done.
Okay.
So it's out there in space right now, coming to you.
Okay. Then, are we going to wait, or are we ready to close the public portion of the meeting?
I am sending this image to Mr. Zena, who can post it on our YouTube page.
This is J.C. McKinnon. I just wanted to confirm with the applicant there. I don't see any patios. There's not any patios, correct?
That might be a question for Mark Weaver.
Yeah, not on the. This is Mark Weaver at 50 North South Main, Memphis, Tennessee, HBG Design. There are no balconies overlooking Highland on that side. No.
Very good.
Okay.
Thanks. This is Daryl Thomas. I just wanted to say I think this is a fabulous project, and it would definitely get my support. When we did the Tennessee Brewery building, we had the same issue with people that lived in those residential areas for folk on the west side seeing into their backyards. But I mean, we worked through it, and there's been no trouble since we've done this. And that project has been completed a couple of years now. So you just answered one of my concerns with JP asking that question about balconies. I think we should move forward with this one. This is a great use of this area, and I look forward to that. And thank you guys for doing this project.
Okay, do we have the rendering?
I saw the rendering flash up on the screen, and it was my problem. It's probably upside down. Maybe John Zena is flipping it over.
It's right now.
Right now.
It's not upside down now. It's good. All right.
Okay.
Are there any
We
more
have to use paintbrush at City Hall.
Thank you. Thank you all for posting the eastern elevation.
Okay. Now, if there aren't any more questions, I'm going to close the public. Are there any more questions? Well, then I'm going to close the public portion of the meeting, and right quick before Dr. Pritchard has to leave, I believe you do the motion.
Yes.
We hold first, and if that passes, then we hold, and then if that does not pass, then we move to approve.
Are you ready for the motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Move approval of agenda item number 1, SE20-02, Poplar Plaza.
Dr. Pritchard, I
Yes.
think we're going to move to whether or not we're going to hold it.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear a real motion for a hold.
Well, Madam Chair, it's whoever of the 10 of you wants to take a strike first. If a motion to hold is made before a motion to approve, then we vote on that, and then vice versa. So it's Whoever
I move
acts
to approve.
the quickest.
I move to approve the project.
Okay, you can't do that. You can only move to hold. Dr. Pritchard has to move to approve.
Madam Chair, I know that's our custom that Dr. Pritchard does make most motions, but technically anybody on the board can make any motion, right?
Particularly a hold.
Me. Okay. Go ahead.
All right, I move to approve this project.
Do I hear a second?
Fleming seconds.
Pardon? Do I
Scott
hear a
Fleming second.
Okay, and it has been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair, this is Mr. Fleming. I too just want to echo what my colleagues have said. I think this is a great project. It's exactly what this major intersection in Memphis needs. A lot of density, falls right in line with the 3.0 plan, and it will just revitalize this entire area, and really appreciate the good design work and look forward to supporting the project.
Okay, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, then we will vote individually.
Yes, ma'am. And before I take the roll, this is just a reminder, this is a vote to approve. If this passes, then the project passes. If it fails, then a member of the body could make a motion to hold. And Mr. Thomas, you made this motion. Currently, we have one condition in our staff report. Would you be amenable to adding a condition that would state the elevations shall be substantially in compliance with the elevations submitted, period?
Meaning they could not go above the 78, whatever that number is, correct?
Correct. That's condition number one. So just to kind of lock in the elevation that they just sent us, if we wanted, if y'all were amenable to that, a new condition would be that the elevation should be substantially compliant with those.
Have no problem with that.
And Mr. Fleming?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so that the motion now contains that extra condition number 2. With that, I'll take the roll call. Ms. Wilbanks?
Yes.
Mr. Tolles?
Aye.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Dr. Pritchard?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon?
Yes.
Ms. Vice Chair?
Yes.
Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
And Madam Chair?
Yes.
That's 10 ayes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. And right now, we're going to change the guard for the regular chairperson. Dr. Pritchard, you said you needed to leave at 10:30, so...
Yes.
Ms.
Thank you,
Wilbanks,
Madam Chair.
Thank you, and thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right. Ms. Wilbanks, if you will go ahead and call the next case, please. And that
Yes,
would
ma'am.
be case number 3.
3. All right. Item number 3, case TD 95-374 in Cordova. The request is a modification to a planned development to allow townhomes on the south side of Dexter, west of Chickering. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions.
Thank you. I know that we have opposition. Is the applicant present? Would you go ahead and give us your name and address, and then we'll hear the case?
David Bray with the Bray Firm, 2950 Stage Plaza North.
Thank you. All right, we're ready to hear the case. Mr. Thomas?
Hello again, board members. This is case number PD 95-374, correspondence case. So the development is Commons at Dexter Lake, the location 7913 Dexter Road. Serpa Construction LLC is the owner applicant, and the request is a site plan approval for a 15-lot single-family and 5 quadplex lots as required by outline plan conditions within a 6-acre lot on the south side of Dexter Road. Go to the next slide. And so this development is going to be like I said, the 15 single-family lots at a average lot size of 6,000 square feet, with a 40-foot front yard setback and a 20-foot rear yard setback, with 5-yard setbacks in between the single-family homes. And then the 5 proposed quadplex units will have an average square footage of 22,000 square feet, with those same setbacks in place. The proposal is consistent with the Memphis 3.0 plan, and staff recommends approval with conditions. The conditions can be found on the next slide. So condition 1, a detailed landscaping plan, which includes plant types, size, at planting, and total number, will be made part of the final plat. The applicant shall submit all required documents and plans mentioned in the letter from City Engineering and City Sewer to fulfill the Fletcher Creek Sewer Basin requirements. And all outline plan conditions remain applicable unless modified by site conditions 1 through 2. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Board members, you have any questions of Mr. Thomas? Hearing none. Applicant, Mr. Bray, we're ready for your presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm here with the developers of the project. We appreciate the work of staff on getting to this point. We held our Zoom meeting with the neighborhood about a week ago, answered some questions that they had regarding the trees along the west side of the development, landscaping, detention requirements, homeowners association. I think we addressed most of their concerns at that time. Traffic was another concern. I think we addressed most of their concerns at that time. And we're happy to answer any questions the board has and to address the comments or the concerns of those that have registered to speak on the other side of this, and we'll reserve our time for rebuttal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see we have 2 people in opposition. Are the 2 people here? If so, we're ready for you to introduce them to speak.
Yes, ma'am. And just for everyone's edification, particularly Mr. Tony's, we only have 1 speaker in opposition. So, Mr. Tony, you have the 10 minutes. And you're on.
Thank you. I'm representing Les Wright. He couldn't be here today because he's had a death in the family. He only had a couple of concerns. He's worried about the noise of the project, of course. His house is only 20 feet away from the project, and he would like to keep that pine tree line and the privet hedge. And he believes that's probably going to be about the only buffer between his house and that project. Excuse me.
Mr. Tony,
the only other concern he has is the runoff.
Mr. Tony, Madam Chair, your volume is kind of low. I think maybe some people couldn't hear you. But, Mr. Tony, can you give your name and address for the record?
I'm sorry. James Tony, Thoni, 2560 Heatherbrook Lane, Germantown, Tennessee, representing Les Wright, the adjoining property owner.
Thank you.
Okay,
you
go
can
ahead.
Continue.
We just needed that information.
Yes, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. The only other concern he has is the runoff of the water, probably the volume and the velocity of the water. And he would like to make a concession of asking for a sewer line connection because he has 2 septic tanks there that are very sensitive to water absorption. And he thought if he could get connected to the sewer line that would resolve that problem. And I believe after those 2, I don't think he'd have any objection to the project.
You're okay.
Okay, thank you. Any board members have any questions for Mr. Tony before we go for the rebuttal for Mr. Bray? Any questions for Mr. Tony? Okay, Mr. Bray, you have plenty of time for your rebuttal. 3
Thank
minutes.
you, Madam Chair.
Can go over.
Okay. Okay, I'll try not to go over.
You can go over because you reserved your time.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay.
As far as the landscaping, I believe that's addressed in the staff conditions. We'll have a landscape screen along both sides of this property, and we're going to reserve as much existing vegetation as possible. And as far as the runoff concerns, and I'm not sure if Mr. Tony was on the neighborhood Zoom meeting we held or not. We've got, I believe, 2, possibly 3 points of runoff in this from this development. We will have to have detention basins in those locations to meet city requirements, and we will address those at the time of construction plans. The last thing he brought up was a sewer connection. And I'm sitting here with the developers of the project, and we were just discussing it. We have no problem with extending the sewer over and making allowances in the holding facility that we're going to have to install to meet the city requirements because it's in the Fletcher Creek Basin to accommodate that lot. The only thing we would say is that Mr. Tony would have to pay for his own sewer tap fee. But I believe that's something that he could work out with city engineering at that time.
Okay. Thank you. Board members, you have any questions of Mr. Bray or his constituents prior to me closing the portion of the public portion of the meeting? Any questions for Mr. Bray? Hearing none, I will close the public portion of the meeting, and we are ready for the motion. Ms. Wilbanks.
Move to approve item number 3, case PD 95-374. Mr. Whitehead, am I okay to add that they will extend the sewer to Mr. Wright's lot, but he will pay for his sewer tap?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'd like to move.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second. This is Jennifer O'Connell.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and second. Is there any discussion from the board members? Any discussion whatsoever? Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote, and we're ready for our individual roll call vote.
Mr. Tolles. Mr. Tolles.
Yes.
Ms. Lyles-Wallace.
Yes.
Ms. O'Connell.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Mr. Fleming.
Yes.
Ms. Wilbanks.
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon.
Yes.
Mr. Gill.
Yes.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
9 ayes.
Thank you very much. Motion carries. Thank you very much.
All right. Item number 5, case PD 07-342 in Southeast Shelby County. The request is a site plan review for a veterinary clinic at the northeast corner of Tennessee 385, also known as Bill Morris Parkway, and Forest Hill, Irene. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is Scott Fleming. Please show me recused from this case.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Is the applicant present?
Yes, ma'am. Cindy Reeves, SR Consulting, 5909 Shelby Oaks Drive, Suite 200. I also have my client here, Dr. Fisher, your name and address.
Stephen Corey Fisher, 8859 Darby Dam Lane, Germantown, Tennessee, 38138.
Okay. Is there any opposition? I don't believe there was any opposition.
No, ma'am, there's not.
Okay. So you just wanted to add an amendment of some sort?
Madam Chair, may I? I'll do a quick prep up for Ms. Reeves because when she asked that this be pulled off consent. Mr. Penzis, the staff planner who's over here running our meeting, asked me to mention a condition that he feels like he failed to add. If you notice, Mr. Zena, if you could scroll down to the site, I think the body, this is at the northeast corner of Tennessee 385, Bill Morris, and Forest Hill, Irene. This is largely an apartment complex development, but we do have another veterinary clinic to the north. And for those with their staff reports open, I'm going to go straight down to page 20 with the conditions. And the condition that Mr. Penzis asked me to mention that he failed to add was with regard to the sidewalk. If you look at the aerial of this site, or on the site plan just above page 20, you'll notice that TDOT owns kind of a tapered situation right here in which they failed to extend the sidewalk to their property line. We're talking about TDOT. And the sidewalk underneath the interstate or the expressway is only underneath, it goes from ramp to ramp. Eastbound 385 ramp to westbound 385 ramp on the east side of Forest Hill. What we would like to do is have that sidewalk connected from the north side of that westbound ramp up to the site. This is an off-site improvement, but off-site improvements are permissible provided they have a nexus to the site, and we think that this would, if this property owner does not make this connection, we would rely upon TDOT to make it, and that could be forever. So with that, I'll hand the floor over to Ms. Reeves to both rebut my proposed condition 3 and rebut our already condition number 2. Ms. Reeves, the floor is yours.
Thank you. On condition 3, we don't have an issue with that. What our issue is with the elevations, if you'll turn to your staff report, the elevations that we are proposing, we're very attached to these elevations. The condition 8A that Mr. Penzis is referring to is commercial and office buildings shall be constructed using a consistent style and materials. I sent Mr. Whitehead a couple of pictures of the convenience store, the gas station, and the vet pet suite. They're not consistent in style either, and we just feel that our Craftsman style is more appropriate for a veterinarian clinic than to use cement block and stucco and hardy boards. We just feel that our elevations are much more appropriate for our use. We don't want to have the gas station look for a veterinarian clinic. We feel that we also complement the entrance elements along Forest Hill, Irene, the ground-mounted signage along 385 to the south for the multifamily, for the preserve apartments. We feel that we're consistent, that we're compatible with the apartments that are behind us, and we just feel that our elevations are more appropriate for our use, and we just don't want to look like a gas station. It's a veterinarian clinic that does, surgeries. We need the porte-cochere so that you keep the customers out of the weather whenever they come to the clinic to drop off their pet. We would ask the board to please approve these elevations instead of us revising our elevations to look like the adjacent two buildings, or the other two buildings within the planned development. They're on two different sides of 385.
And Madam Chair, what that would involve is replacing number 2 with a very similar condition that we added to the Poplar Plaza case, that condition number 2, that the elevations shall be substantially compliant with the submitted elevations. And from our perspective, I think that's a good trade. They get their elevations, we get our sidewalks.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehead.
So, at this point, do we have any questions from the board members? Any questions from the board members? Hearing none, then we will close the public portion of the case, and we will ask for a motion, I guess, as amended. If you can repeat all of that, Ms. Wilbanks.
All right. Move to approve item number 5, case PD 07-342, with the submitted elevations and the addition of the sidewalk per Mr. Whitehead's earlier wording.
Okay.
I'll second that. And this is Jennifer O'Connell.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Do I hear any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I assume we're all ready to vote. We're ready for our roll call vote. Mr. Whitehead.
Vice Chair Lyles Wallace.
Yes.
Mr. McKinnon.
Aye.
Ms. Wilbanks.
Aye.
Mr. Tolles.
Yes.
Mr. Gill.
Yes.
Mr. Thomas.
Yes.
Ms. O'Connell.
Yes.
And Mr. Fleming, I think I heard, did you say you recused?
Yes, he did.
Yes, I'm recused.
Okay. Thank you. And Madam Chair.
Yes.
So that's 8 ayes.
Okay. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Ms. Wilbanks, we're ready for number 7.
All right. Item number 7, case PD 20-07 in Berkeley. The request is planned development to allow a commercial structure on the east side of Stratford, north of Summer. Staff recommendation is approval with conditions.
Okay, thank you. Is the applicant present? If so, would you give us your name and address? And there is some opposition, so we will hear the case. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Hello?
Who is
okay,
it?
could you name and address, and then we'll proceed with the hearing of the case.
Josh Burnett, you're on. Josh Burnett, you're on. Josh Burnett, you're on.
Why are we having echoes?
If your phone is on, just be sure you mute your YouTube.
If your phone is on, just.
Yeah, I'm trying to get this figured out. Hold on.
I think you got it.
Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Is Arthur Nave on? I think he's going to be the one that's supposed to present this project.
Okay. Well, can you get us started? I don't see Arthur Nave. I did see another Nave, Caroline Nave.
That's Mr. Arthur.
Okay, Ms. Nave, Mr. Nave, you're on.
Hello, this is Arthur Nave. I'm on now. Am I on now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, just give us your name and address, then we'll have the OPD staff present the case.
Arthur Nave, architect, 401 Goodland Circle, Memphis.
Thank you. Okay, we're ready to hear the case. Mr. Skinner?
Lucas Skinner is actually on vacation, so it's me, Seth Thomas with OPD again. I'll be presenting it on his behalf.
Okay, thank you.
So this is a relatively short presentation, just a one-slider. So this current property is being developed. Well, it's overlaying over 3 existing residential lots and will be a commercial lot with a residential building design. The approved uses for which are, let me scroll to the outline plan, are an event center, a place of worship, a fitness center, educational facility, office spaces, or a restaurant, excluding drive-in restaurants. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, Mr. Thomas, you're pretty swift. That's all I can say. Okay, we're ready for the applicant to make their presentation, and then we'll hear the opposition. Are there any questions of Mr. Thomas, by the way? Hearing none, we're ready to hear from the applicant.
That's Arthur Nave. Thank the staff for its guidance in preparing the site plan for this. Initially, we had the building moved further back with parking in front, and they suggested that we move the building further and wrap the parking around behind, so it presents a more friendly facade to the street. Also, we're attempted to present a more residential feel elevation to the street to transition to the residential quality of the rest of the neighborhood. We did have a neighborhood meeting, and the one attendee expressed concern about drainage. They're to the north of us. There's a pie-shaped lot, but they said that there's some water occasionally backed up on their property after the Planet Fitness was developed. So we responded to that. Of course, we will have a storm drainage basin to the rear of the property, as you can see on the right-hand side of the slide, or the eastern portion of the slide. So we will be in compliance with city and local requirements for storm drainage retention. We're also providing a 6-foot-high brick wall across the entire northern edge of the property, a Class 3 buffer with landscaping, and a brick with pilasters to screen the neighborhood to the north. All the uses to the south and to the east are commercial uses, which will also be fenced with either wrought iron fence or a wood board fence to the south. I think one of the staff conditions also was that the entrance and exit to the site be a one-way, the one-way in being to the south driveway, and the one-way out being to the north driveway, and the driveways will be adjusted from the site plan that you see there to accommodate that. We will have the 20% green space landscaping, some landscaping out front, and we think this will be a nice transition from the neighborhood from commercial to residential and provide a needed use. Initially, it will be an event center as planned as the primary use for this facility initially. So other than that, I have no further presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any questions of the applicant right now? Hearing none, we're ready to hear from the opposition. Is Mr. Belinkie on the line?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you give us your name and address?
My name is Charles Belinkie. My address is 5019 Welshire Avenue. I'm speaking in opposition to this project because while had Summer Avenue been further along in redevelopment, this might be appropriate. Summer Avenue still has lots and lots of vacant buildings that are appropriate for this use. This is the camel under the tent's nose, if you will, of moving commercial properties up north along Stratford into a residential neighborhood. As you all may be aware, next month you have on your calendar the demolition of the beautiful church at Highland and Summer, and that, I think, has the potential to be a much superior music venue. We already have problems along the Summer corridor because of bars and music venues such as El Corralón, which is just around the corner from Summer on Mendenhall, and to see that kind of creeping encroachment moving into a basically quiet residential neighborhood seems to me inappropriate at this time. I'd suggest perhaps the developer talk to the people at the Church on Highland and pass this for a month and see what they can both come up with next month. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any board members have any questions for Mr. Belanke? Any questions for the opposition? Hearing none, I am ready for the applicant's rebuttal, if any.
Well, this is Arthur Nave. I have really no rebuttal to that, other than that we're ready to move ahead, and this didn't come up when we advertised for a neighborhood meeting, which could have been an appropriate forum to discuss that. We've met all the conditions. We are prepared to meet all the conditions that the planning staff presented to us in regard to traffic study and so forth. So that's as far as I can go.
Okay. Thank you very much. Board members, do you have any questions of either the applicant or the opposition? Hearing none, I'm ready to close the public portion of the meeting. And I'm assuming we're ready for the motion. Ms. Wilbanks?
All right, move to approve item number 7, case TD 20-07.
I'll second it.
Fleming seconds.
Okay, we have a motion that has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Do we have any discussion amongst our board members? Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. We need a roll call vote.
Mr. Gill?
Yes.
Ms. McKinnon?
Yes.
Ms. O'Connell?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Ms. Miles-Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes.
Ms. Wilbanks?
Yes.
Mr. Tolles?
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
That's 9 ayes.
Okay, the ayes have it. Motion carried. Thank you very much. We are ready for item number 8.
All right, item number 8, case SUP 20-07 in Whitehaven. The request is a special use permit for used vehicle sales at 590 East Rains Road. Staff recommendation is rejection.
Okay, since we have a rejection here, and we do have some opposition, I'm ready to hear from the applicant as far as your name and address, and then we'll have a presentation.
David Bray for the applicant, Bray Firm, 2950 Stage Plaza North. I'm also here with Jerome Flowers, who is the owner of the property, 590 East Rains. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Staff, we're ready for our presentation. Is it Brett Davis or Mr. Thomas?
Yes, ma'am. Brett Davis. Good morning, members of the board and general public. This is also a brief one-slide presentation, so I think I'd like to just go through the staff report briefly. I can give everybody just a moment to pull that up.
Okay.
For agenda item 8. All right, so just to begin again, case number SUP 20-7, location 590-590 East Rains Road in Whitehaven. The owner and applicant are the same, Negotiable Taxes Incorporated, represented by David Bray. The request is a special use permit for vehicle sales on this quarter-acre lot in the CMU 1 district. We go down to page 6 of the staff report. We will see an aerial photograph of the site. You'll note that there are more than several vehicles on the 2 parcels to the east of our site. Those are not vehicle sales. They're both some sort of vehicle service or repair business. and both have beyond the legal limit of automobiles currently on their site. On page 7, we see the zoning map. So this, again, is CMU1 with residential to the north. There's a sliver parcel that's undeveloped to the north of this property, the subject property, that is also commercial. And beyond that is residential. It's a 60-foot wide property there. It sort of acts as a buffer. Page 8, we see a reinforcement of that, just a land use map, commercial corridor with the residential to the north. And then 2 photographs of the site. So the first one on page 9, we see the existing structure. This is a tax preparation business also operated by the applicant, who intends to continue operating this business as well as the vehicle sales business on site. So both would share the structure and parking. And then on page 10, we see the backyard of this property, and I'll point out we can see the backyard of the nearby houses as well. Okay, page 11, we see the staff report. So the applicant has proposed some beautification to the site, the addition of a street tree in that southwest corner and replacement of some pavement with landscaping. And in conclusion, on page 13, we are recommending rejection essentially for 2 reasons. The first is that this is the CMU1 district. The CMU1 district is meant for neighborhood serving retail and services, and it explicitly states in its intent statement that auto-oriented uses are not appropriate in this district. So this really isn't the sort of commercial district meant for this use. And the second point is that it's too close to the residential uses, to those 2 houses and their backyards. So for these reasons, we find that this proposal is inconsistent with the intent of the code and with the character of nearby land uses, and we are recommending rejection. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Board members, you have any questions for Mr. Davis at this point? Any questions for Mr. Davis? Hearing none, I'm ready to hear from the applicant. You have 10 minutes to make your presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Again, we held a neighborhood meeting a couple weeks ago. Had a few people show up. They had some concerns about the site and how it was being developed. In response to the staff report and the concern about the automobile uses being inappropriate in the CMU1 zoning, as mentioned in the staff report, the property immediately to the east is vehicle service and vehicle repair. So not sure that this would be inconsistent with that. And we have submitted a site plan that would be in compliance with the UDC, adding green space along the front, replacing the chain link fencing with appropriate fencing, and as the planner and I have discussed, we would review the site plan further, depending upon approval of this. And to meet all of those requirements, and that's one of their conditions of approval if it were to be approved. Did make points about the residential to the north, but we're not abutting the residential. There is a commercial lot. It is currently undeveloped, but it could develop at any time, and that's 60 feet of buffer between us and the residential to the north. And again, we'd be more than happy to work through conditions with screening and all that. Mr. Flowers is sitting here with me now. He runs negotiable taxes out of that location. As he has indicated, it's a seasonal business. Probably shouldn't be for any of us. Tax preparation probably should be something that we're all looking at all year long, but most of us tend to look at that from January to April 15th, and the rest of the year he is less busy. He owns the location. He's been there for quite some time. This is a business that he has an interest in and some experience in, and therefore would like to grow it and grow the tax revenue for this location and and be a more contributing member to the tax base and to the overall area. I'll let him add anything he wants to add, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions.
I'm good. I'm okay with it.
Okay, he doesn't have anything further to add.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the applicant at this time?
I do. This is Lisa Wilbanks. Are Mr. Bray, are all of his vehicles going to be behind the building that he wants to sell?
That's correct. Per our site plan, which, let me flip back. I don't think they put that up on the screen. But the site plan is on page 11 of the staff report. We have all of the display spaces back behind the building. In front of the building, we would have 3 spaces, two for customers or employees, and 1 ADA. And then all of the display would be back behind the building. And the chain link that you see across the front would be removed and replaced. We'd have landscaping in there and some fencing that would go around the property, but it would come off the rear of the building and over to the side property line. You would no longer have fencing across the sidewalk and the streetscape.
Okay. All right. I was looking at the site plan. I just wanted to make sure there weren't going to be any cars in the front that said for sale on them. Okay. Thank you.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. No cars in the front.
Okay. Thank you. Any more questions for the applicant? We have an opponent here. We have Mr. Cowles. Is he on the line?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Cowles, are you?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
I'm on the line.
The floor is yours. Just give us your name and address.
My name is Joseph Cowles, 4106 Shirley Drive, Memphis, Tennessee, 38109. We are against the proposed car sales. My wife and I have lived in the neighborhood for some 41 years, and we decided years ago that we were not going to move. However, we don't want our property to be devalued because of commercial businesses coming into the area. Now, the area already is congested. Next to the proposed site is a car repair shop. Across the street is a washateria, a tire repair shop. Down the street is a car wash. Also, a beauty shop is in the area. As I stated, this is a very congested area, plus the traffic volume is very heavy also on Range Road between Elvis Presley Boulevard, which is Highway 61, and 3rd Street, which is Highway 51. There's a lot of traffic. And we in the neighborhood, some of the other neighbors as well, have the same consent. We do not want this in the area. He has a tax office there already, which we have no problems with. But we feel that if this were to come into the area, it would devaluate our property, and traffic would be horrendous. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We have any questions, board members, for Mr. Cowles? Any questions for Mr. Cowles? Okay, hearing none. Mr. Bray, would you like to rebut?
Yes, ma'am. And we certainly understand the traffic concerns along that area, but as noted in the staff report, this is on CMU1. It's a commercial business right now. Any appropriate use in CMU1 could come in there tomorrow. I don't believe that auto sales with 15 display spaces are going to have a significant impact on the traffic in that area. That said, any application that we have in front of OPD and city engineering will include a trip generation report and any remedial issues that we need to deal with that, and we'll be more than happy to deal with those issues.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any questions of either the applicant or the opponent at this time? Okay, hearing none, I'm ready to close the public portion of the meeting, and we're ready for the motion, Ms. Wilbanks.
All right, move to approve item number 8, case SUP 20-07.
Do I hear a second?
Second, Mr. Fleming.
Okay, it has been moved, and we have a second. Is there any discussion amongst the board members? Any discussion? Hearing none, I assume we're ready to vote. Mr. Whitehead, we're ready for our roll call vote.
Ms. Wilbanks?
Okay, I'm sorry. Rejection, so if I say yes, I'm wanting the rejection. No, I'm wanting it to go forward.
No, the motion was made in the affirmative, so yes is a yes.
Okay, yes.
Okay. And again, a yes is for approval. Mr. Tolles?
No.
No. Mr. Thomas?
No.
Ms. O'Connell?
No.
Mr. McKinnon?
No.
Vice Chair Laws Wallace?
No.
Mr. Gill?
No.
And Mr. Fleming?
No.
Madam Chair?
No.
That's 8 nays, 1 aye.
Okay, motion fails. I'm sorry, motion fails. Thank you very much. Do we have any other announcements prior to closing the meeting?
Just one announcement. One of the speakers made a reference to a proposed gas station at the corner of Summer and Highland. No application has been filed with our office for that. There is a different gas station on Summer Avenue. It's much further east near the old Kmart. So I just wanted to correct that. But that's my only announcement.
Okay, thank you, and thank everybody for showing up, and thank you for your time, and hearing no other announcements, meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.